You ever remember a Christmas where nothing went wrong, but it still didn't feel right with you? Not a fight, not a blow up, not some dramatic moment. Just that quiet realization where you're standing, there thinking, why do I feel like this? That feeling usually sneaks up on you. You're holding a drink. Someone's talking near you. There's music playing in the background that everyone says is classic. Someone laughs, someone else coughs, someone's in the kitchen arguing over nothing. And suddenly you feel disconnected. Not sad exactly, not angry, just alone. And that's a strange thing to admit when you're surrounded by people. I've learned over the years that loneliness has nothing to do with being by yourself. Some of the loneliest moments I've had in my life have happened in rooms full of people. 20 people around you, friends, family, neighbors, and yet you feel like you're sitting in the middle of it instead of part of it. You feel like you could be looking through the window from outside. The holidays have a way of amplifying that because the holidays come with rules, unspoken ones. You're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be grateful. You're supposed to enjoy this. Although I may look like Santa, I'm a bit of a Scrooge. And when you don't feel these things or you break the unspoken rules, your brain starts to turn on you. What's wrong with me? Why can't I just relax? Other people have it worse, so you push it down. You smile, you nod, you play your part. That works for a while until it doesn't. I think a lot of people don't realize how exhausting the holidays are until they're in them. Your routine disappears. Your quiet disappears. Your control disappears. Your time stops being yours. And then there's the chaos. The small stuff piles up. That one neighbor, you know the one. The guy who says, "Hey man, can I stop over for a drink?" You know better, but you still say yes anyway. One drink turns into an hour. An hour turns into two. Suddenly he turns and says, "Hey, show me the rig again. The racing rig." For the 1,000th time, he's seen it. He knows what it does. He still pokes buttons like it's brand new. And you're standing there thinking, this is the holidays in a nutshell. No boundaries, no schedule, just noise, people, and obligation. Here's the thing though. Moments like that aren't really about the neighbor. They're about energy. During the holidays, everyone is pulling from the same limited supply. Your time, your attention, your patience, and your emotional bandwidth. And if you're someone who is like myself, already lives with stress, anxiety, trauma, and those invisible wounds, that mental supply runs out pretty quick. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we're taught to feel guilty about it. What do you mean you don't like the holidays? Then the comparison comes in. And this one's brutal because even if you avoid social media, comparisons still happen. You compare your family, your siblings, you compare your coworkers, you compare traditions, you compare energy levels. Why do they get to buy their kids so many gifts? I can't do that. And you start comparison. You hear someone say, "We've been nonstop since December started." Someone else is hosting. Someone else is traveling, and you feel like you're behind. Behind what? Who decided this is a race? This is where I always like to come back to racing, because in racing, comparison is dangerous. The moment you stop driving your line and start chasing someone else's, you lose awareness of your own car. We talked about that in a previous episode. You miss your braking point, you overcorrect, you spin. The holidays are no different. If you spend the season trying to match somebody else's pace, you're going to burn yourself out. Staying in your lane matters in December than any other time of the year. Sometimes the smartest move isn't pushing harder. It's backing off. Something else people don't really like to admit. Sometimes being alone is actually better. Not alone, but alone. Quiet, controlled, safe. Sometimes being at home, doing what you want to do is healthier than forcing yourself into a situation that drains you. That doesn't make you broken. It makes you self-aware. The problem is we don't give ourselves permission to say that out loud. We don't give ourselves permission to say no. Some may remember what I said in Discord the other day, and this is the part where I want to be honest. There was a moment, certainly, where I caught myself struggling to feel anything while writing this episode. When that happens, I do what I've learned, and whether it's meditation music or different genres of music, I put the music on that I feel may bring out some more emotions. It reminds me that even when my brain tells me I'm disconnected, I'm still here. And what pulled me out of that moment wasn't the holidays, it was the community and music. You guys, the Pick Crew. That matters more than I can properly put into words. Because here's the truth. Not everyone feels warm and connected during the holidays. Some people feel overwhelmed. Some feel numb. Some feel alone in a crowd. If that's you, you're not failing the holidays. You're just human. When people think about Christmas overseas, they usually imagine something warm and movie-like. Maybe it's a trip, a destination, vacation for Christmas. Maybe it's sharing meals, laughing together, different cultures coming together. And yes, sometimes there were moments like that. I was deployed overseas for many Christmases. Most of the time, Christmas overseas wasn't about celebration. It was about endurance. It was about getting through a day that reminded you how far from home you really were. New Year's is always a reminder for me. December 31st, 1994, in Croatia, a time I'll never forget. So when you're overseas, the calendar still moves, but the meaning changes. December 25th becomes just another day. You wake up early, you put your gear on, you head out on another mission or another shift on an observation post. There's no pause button. There's no holiday hours, just another mission, another watch. Another reminder that life back home is happening without you. One of the hardest parts wasn't the danger. It was the mental drift. You could be physically present doing your job, staying sharp, and your mind will still wander. You start wondering, what's my family doing right now? Who's sitting at the table? Who's missing? You'd imagine dinner, gifts, laughter. Then you'd snap back to where you were. Different smells, different sounds, different rules. That contrast can mess with you if you let it. Back then, on my earlier tours, yes, we didn't have the technology. We wrote letters, real letters, numbered. So in case they were received out of order, you could read them by the number. So you didn't read something and not make sense of it. Handwritten, folded. Sometimes a girlfriend or a wife would spray some perfume on it. That was a blessing and a curse. Over my many years of tours, that was the connection. Sometimes weeks would go by waiting for a letter. And when that letter would finally show up, the envelope alone could carry you for days. You'd read the same words repeatedly, not because you forgot them, but because there were proof that someone still remembered you existed. Some of the best Christmas moments I ever had were overseas. They weren't big at all. They were quiet. Opening a letter, reading the same sentence again, holding on to a piece at home. But not every letter was a good one. This is the part people don't like to talk about. Around the holidays, morale could dip. Guys would get Dear John letters, sometimes weeks old by the time they would arrive at Christmas, which the mail is sent more frequently. So all the mail arrives for Christmas. If you don't know what a Dear John letter is, it's a letter that basically you receive while overseas, saying your relationship is over. Finding out thousands of miles away, surrounded by brothers and sisters, there's nowhere to get some time alone. That kind of news hits different overseas. There's no escape hatch. You still have to function. You still have to show up. There's no time to step away and rethink. And that's where the leadership and the brotherhood matter. Because holidays overseas weren't just emotionally heavy, they were risky. When suicide was a real concern, not because people were weak, but because isolation plus stress plus bad news is a dangerous mix. Precautions often had to be taken. I remember times where I would send a soldier, I would take his weapon and tell him to have a good night's sleep. Lock his weapon up, take stuff out of his room that he could potentially harm himself with. We had eyes on people, checking in. That's where often the buddy check, the buddy system, your battle buddy, pulling someone aside and just sitting with them. No speeches, no advice, just sitting there, often in silence. And then over time, somebody tell a joke and laughter. Meanwhile, you're still watching things to make sure the area is secure and safe. What kept us grounded during that time was each other. That's something I want to be very clear about. We didn't have family with us. Sometimes there would be people that would be deployed with their spouse. Maybe their spouse was in another camp overseas or another forward operating base and they couldn't actually see each other, but they're in the same country on the same operation. But we had each other, just like a pit crew. Everyone had a role. Everyone watched out for each other. Everyone noticed when something was off. And that bond didn't care where you came from. It wasn't race, religion, background. None of that mattered. We were just humans trying to get through a hard season or a hard operation together. Being overseas during the holidays also changed how I see culture. You're surrounded by sometimes people who don't even celebrate the same way. Different food, different music, different customs. And you realize something very important. They're not other. They're just people. People with families. People with traditions. People who love, worry, laugh, struggle, just like you. I've often got asked in life, why am I so open to different ethnic groups, open-minded to learn more about cultures? Why didn't I seem uncomfortable around some of these differences? It really comes down to all the time I've spent in different countries, and I'm extremely thankful for that. You've worked alongside soldiers from all over the world. You stop seeing divisions. You see humanity. Different cultures are just different paint jobs on the same chassis. Different decals on the same livery. And that mindset stuck with me throughout the years. This is part of the reason why I don't buy into us versus them nonsense, whatever group or religion or wherever you come from. We're all human. You rely on the person next to you, not the label attached to them. And that perspective doesn't go away when you come home. Here's the part that might surprise some people. Some of the best Christmases of my life weren't at home. And if my family's listening, we had some good Christmases too, but they were very chaotic. But yes, I had some great Christmases overseas. Not because they were easy, not because they were fun, but because they were honest. There was no pressure to perform. There was no pretending. There was no forced cheer. There was no, oh, make sure we smile. Aunt Betty's apple pie is the best. No, it's dry and tastes like crap. It was just about connection, just showing up for each other, and just getting through the day together. And honestly, that's why this community hit me the way it did. It reminded me so much of the brotherhood and the sisterhood of my time in the military. Different backgrounds, different lives, different time zones, but we all share the same thing. We all want to get on the track together. None of that matters where you've come from. Age, race, sex, doesn't matter. We're just racers, brothers and sisters in the same space, sharing something real. That sense of we've got each other doesn't disappear just because you're not deployed anymore. It finds new places to live. And sometimes, especially during the holidays, that matters more than anything else. Because not everyone has a full house. Not everyone has a perfect family situation. Not everyone deserves connection, even if it looks different than the postcard version of a Christmas. Coming home after spending holidays overseas certainly changes you. You don't always notice it right away. At first, you're just grateful to be back. Real food, familiar faces, heat that works when it's supposed to. But then the holidays roll around and you realize something doesn't quite fit the way it used to. The noise feels louder. The expectations feel heavier. The emotion hits faster because once you've experienced Christmas stripped down to the bare essentials, just people relying on each other. Pardon me for my emotions. Those extra layers that you add on from being away, of having Christmases with the bare essentials, those extra layers when you come back home can feel overwhelming. Here's the thing nobody really says out loud. Being home for the holidays isn't always easier than being away. Sometimes it's harder. Because now you're navigating family dynamics, old roles, old patterns. Maybe there was new traditions formed while you were gone and you feel left out. You walk into a room and suddenly you're not who you are now. You're who everyone remembers. And that can be exhausting. Family holidays are complicated. Every family has their own version of dysfunction. No matter what it may look like on the outside, every family has their own problems. Some just hide it better than others. There's always the relative who smells like they've never washed their clothes. The one who refuses to change their socks. The aunt with a backstory nobody wants to discuss. The argument that starts quietly and escalates over nothing. Yeah, it can be messy, but it's not your mess. And there's something important in learning how to sit with that without letting it consume you. This is where I want to offer something practical that I've found that would sometimes work for me. During the holidays, especially when you're with family, I encourage you to step in another room, step into the pits, and maybe look at the track from the pit lane for a little bit. Step outside, go to that other room, sit quietly for a few minutes and observe. Don't judge, don't try to fix, don't notice, but notice what you do have. The laughter you didn't expect. The moment of calm between chaos. The fact that, for better or worse, these people are still here. I know every family, as I said, is messed up in its own special way, but it's still your family. And there's value in seeing the small things clearly. At the same time, I want to say this very clearly. You are allowed to want your own space during the holidays. You are allowed to enjoy being alone. Choosing solitude during the holidays is not the same as being lonely. Sometimes being home, doing what you want to do is the healthiest option you have. There were times I honestly preferred being alone. No expectations, no noise, no pressure. And now with me living alone, I often don't. I don't put up a tree. I don't buy gifts. Nobody buys gifts for me. And I enjoy my day. And this Christmas, I'll probably be streaming for most of the day. For those that need to get away and spend some time, or maybe I enjoy your company while I'm streaming. And who knows? Maybe you may see Santa show up for my stream. The holidays don't get to dictate how you recharge. One thing that's always helped me, both overseas and at home, was sometimes helping someone, volunteering, checking in. Do something small that mattered to someone. It shifts your perspective. It reminds you that even when things feel heavy, you still have something to give. And sometimes giving is the thing that steadies you. It can focus your gaze. I've been thinking about this episode for about a month now, and my plan was always been the same, to be together. That's why this Christmas I plan on streaming, hang out with the GT7 family. For anyone who's alone, for anyone who needs an excuse to step away from another serving of apple pie, for anyone who just wants to sit in good company for a while. Not that I'm good company, but I sometimes got some jokes. I want to share one last honest moment. There are times when I struggle to feel anything, when my brain tells me I'm disconnected, I'm broken, I feel empty inside. When that happens, I lean on things that bring me back. Music, routine, this community. You've all become a huge part of my life. You've given me a reason to show up consistently, a reason to care, the inspiration to speak out, have the courage to speak openly about mental health, the reason to keep building something meaningful. And that's not something I take lightly. Often with soldiers around holidays, hate to say it, suicide rate of soldiers throughout the year is the highest at the holidays, during the holidays. I will be reaching out and doing my buddy checks for those that I am close to. So as we close this episode, here's what I want to leave with you. The holidays don't have to be perfect. You don't have to love them to survive them. You don't have to match everyone else's version of joy. Sometimes the win is just staying on the track. Sometimes the best pit lane you'll ever find is a place where people simply show up for each other. I'd love for you to put in the comments if you've made it this far. Have you ever spent time overseas or away from home, on the road, maybe job related? How was your experience away from home for Christmas? Maybe the holidays stressed you out. If that pressure, the chaos, the comparison, totally normal. You're not alone. There's a whole pit crew right here with you. This has been Christmas in the Pit Lane. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. I'll see you on the track. Remember, it's okay to say you're not okay.
I'm not a doctor, therapist, or mental health professional. I'm just sharing my story and the lessons I've learned along the way. If you're struggling, please reach out to a professional or someone you trust.
You don't have to carry the weight alone.